Hello, how are you? This video caught my eye. How socialists solved the housing crisis. Socialism is still a bit of a scary word here in America. It spooks some people out here in America. You have to be careful with what you label yourself as. If you're a politician, I mean, I'm not saying you're gonna get like beat up if you're a socialist, and it is becoming more acceptable. I don't know how long it will be until like a democratic socialist is elected president, or nominated as a democratic nominee. Could be soon. But as of right now, it's definitely still got that like communist connotation associated with it to a lot of people. So it's just kind of funny how socialists solved the housing crisis. But I'm very curious to see. It was sent in by Jamiro. It says, I don't know if this will go on the European or German reaction channel. European. Since it's about Vienna in Australia. Or Austria, sorry. But this is my hometown and I want to share why it's the most livable city in the world. It's the most livable city in the world. Wow. That's cool. I guess it took that title from Melbourne. Wasn't Melbourne that? Okay. Anyway. Let's watch.
American housing is in crisis.
That's for sure. When's this video from? 2 years ago. You should see it now.
Right now, up to 12 million Americans are behind an average of $5,800 on rent and risk eviction. With eviction moratoriums soon to expire, we're facing an unprecedented wave of evictions and foreclosures that will crash straight into millions of struggling families across the country. But the truth is, this crisis didn't begin with the pandemic. In fact, housing has been in crisis for a very long time. Even before the pandemic, in places like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, median rents for even one-bedroom apartments could approach $2,500 a month or more. About a third.
How crazy is that? No, I'm going to be honest here. In Indiana, in a small town, it's nowhere near this bad. It's not even remotely. It's so crazy. I can't even imagine. I don't understand. The house I'm living in, now houses have gone up radically. I will say that. But the house I'm living in right now, I bought it for $90,000 in 2019. Now I think it would sell for like $150,000, which is a big increase, but it's still cheap. Still really cheap. With that said, that's also because this is a small house. Anyway, a one-bedroom apartment, I think that'll run you $700 these days here in southern Indiana. But my God, I know in these big cities, it is out of control. I don't know how they do it, and I don't know how you people do it either, because I know rents are out of control everywhere in the world. Times are tough right now, being a renter or trying to buy a house. Man. Anyway, let's keep going.
A third of people in Los Angeles spend a majority of their income on housing.
A majority. God.
In New York City,
more
about
than half
20%
your income
of all renters pay most of their income to their landlord. And in my district, Astoria,
that is robbery. That just sucks. Most of your income, you work 40 hours a week, probably. And most of it is just so you have a place to live. Come on. A couple rooms for you in an apartment building. Most of your money. Come on. Something's not right about that.
About a quarter of residents have to spend most of their paycheck on rent. And the crisis isn't just in big cities. In 95% of all U.S. counties, workers making the minimum don't make enough to afford.
Well, I can see all of Indiana's covered here, so 95% of all U.S. counties can. Oh, on minimum wage.
A one-bedroom rental on their own. The Harvard Center for Housing Studies warns of a new normal for housing in the United States, in which nearly half of all renter households.
Can we go back to the old normal?
Spend almost a third of their income on rent.
I think it was just normal. The old normal was just normal for like 200 years. Can we go back to that? This new normal ain't working.
That's why even before the fallout from the coronavirus started to hit, more than 500,000 Americans nationwide were already homeless, millions more on the brink of losing their housing, and countless families struggling every month to make ends meet. At the root of all of this suffering is the fact that in this country, housing is treated as a commodity, not a right. It's a consumer product, just like clothes or cars, that private businesses can sell on the market to make a profit. And if someone
Not only is it, but it's kind of the backbone of the entire economy. Changing it now would be, wow. I don't even know. I mean, it would just, that would be like the new American Revolution right there. Change housing to be a right. Private property illegal, man.
isn't able to pay, either because their landlord raised their rent or because they can't work for one reason or another, they're not able to stay in their homes. If they're lucky, they can live with friends or family, or maybe in transitional housing for a bit. But for a lot of people, they have nowhere else to go, and they end up sleeping on the streets. In December,
Goes back to that video I watched a couple days ago. You go watch that if you haven't, because my reaction to that, I think, was a sad video. It was just a guy walking around a U.S. city and just showing how rampant homelessness is. I think it was Philadelphia. It's insane.
December 2019, the number of people sleeping in homeless shelters in New York reached 19,000 people, an all-time high. 100,000 New York City students are homeless. That's more than...
I want to know, why does every graph look like this? Why does every bad graph look like this if you look it up about America? And it's like nobody cares. Why is homelessness going through the roof? Why are mortgages going through the roof? Rents through the roof? Overdoses through the roof? Every bad graph through the roof and nobody seems to care. Explain that.
people, an all-time high.
Doesn't look good to me.
100,000 New York City students are homeless. That's more than 10% of the entire student population. Why do so many people end up homeless? It's not because there aren't enough homes to go around. There are plenty of empty homes. No, it's because housing people is not the primary goal of developers or landlords.
Right.
Their goal, simply put, is to make a profit.
You show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome.
And it's much more profitable to build luxury apartments for the rich than decent homes for the poor. This gives us a big shortage of homes for ordinary working people. For every 100 households that are extremely low income, there are only 36 affordable and available homes. As a result, we have plenty of housing for the rich, but poor and working class people don't have nearly enough on the market. So we have people scrounging to make ends meet or sleeping on the streets right below luxury condos and uninhabited apartments. This is a terrible way to organize a housing market. It might be profitable for landlords and developers, but it's not efficient or beneficial for the rest of society. In fact, housing doesn't have to be seen as a market at all. In other countries, housing is considered a fundamental right, like education.
And I am going to be fully honest, because I don't lie. I'm always going to be real when I'm watching a video. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I agree. I'm hearing this guy out, but I'm not just going to, oh yeah, of course, this is what we should do. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I've grown up in America. I have a house. I aspire to have a bigger house one day. And I want to see homelessness tackled for real by somebody, but that does not mean I'm necessarily going to say, oh, okay, like it needs to be socialist. It definitely, I think it needs to be subsidized at the minimum. But let's see if he can convince me further, or what the facts are. Let's keep going.
Or healthcare. That means the government goes to significant lengths to guarantee everyone has a home, and the market plays a much smaller role in the construction and distribution of housing. So let's hop across the pond and about 100 years back in time to take a look at just one example of how an alternative housing model got started in beautiful red Vienna. At the end of the First World War, the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, leaving behind a number of successor states, including modern-day Austria, home to the former imperial capital of Vienna, the 5th largest city in the world. Despite being the seat of an empire, the chaos of the war and
I didn't realize Vienna's that big, I'm gonna be honest. Wow.
Decades of neglect had left the working class of Vienna in desperate circumstances. Inflation was rampant, jobs were scarce, social services were non-existent, and hundreds of thousands of people were crammed into decaying tenements where overcrowding, disease, and violence were rampant.
Unbelievable that this is not that long ago.
So it's no surprise that in 1919,
Unbelievable.
at the first elections ever held in Austria where all adult
100
citizens
years
could
ago.
vote, the Social Democratic Party swept into power at the municipal level on the promise of dramatic social and economic reform. And they delivered. The new government of Vienna implemented a huge range of services, including public health care and public child care. They built high-quality hospitals, schools,
Man, public child care sounds pretty good about now. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. $1,000 a month, easy, for one child.
and recreational facilities. But their crowning achievement was an ambitious program of social housing, what Americans call public housing, that began in 1923 and saw 60,000 new apartments constructed in the first year of its existence, built by the government and financed by taxes on the rich. But these weren't the kinds of apartments you might picture when you think of public housing in the United States.
Right.
Drab high-rises plagued by chronic neglect and underinvestment. Residents
Yeah.
could enjoy leafy courtyards, wide open
Holy shit. And live there for free?
spaces, and plenty of
All right. Bring it. Start it up. I'm ready. I changed my mind.
natural light. They had shared laundries, state-of-the-art kitchens, food co-op,
Now I'm going to be. He just said shared laundry. It's like that's a good thing. What does that mean? I don't know if I necessarily want to share my laundry machines. I just thought it was funny. He said they had shared laundries. Okay. I mean, okay. Most apartments, or a lot of people living in apartments, do share their laundry mat. Yeah. But it's nicer to have your own.
plenty of natural light. They had shared laundries, state-of-the-art kitchens, food co-ops, bathhouses, pharmacies, lecture halls, schools, and swimming pools. These apartments were designed to be both beautiful to look at and beautiful to live in, fostering a sense of
Damn.
shared community among the people who
They look nice.
lived there. And the best part was that because the city didn't have to worry about making a profit, just about paying off their maintenance costs, these homes were both much nicer and much cheaper than what workers had previously known. In 1926, the average rent in Viennese social housing was about just 4% of a monthly wage.
You know, I just had kind of an epiphany. Maybe I'm stupid for not thinking of this before, but when it comes to something like the housing market, as opposed to honestly like healthcare, that's a little bit more tricky because my point is you want to incentivize innovation in healthcare. You want to incentivize innovation in technology, all this stuff. But when it comes to housing, building houses, plumbing, that stuff is pretty much figured out. There's not nearly as big a need to incentivize innovation, which means like the capitalist structure is not as necessary. When I think about it, now that I think about it, like it's really not as necessary. It could definitely be something that's run for non-profit, no profit, because that profit incentive isn't really, Because just think about how these beautiful houses were built, well, it's like, and maintained. It's like, well, people have figured out how to build houses. I mean, even back 100 years ago here in Vienna, they were building beautiful houses. So, yeah.
The first 15 years after Austrian independence
I'm sorry, what did he say here?
workers had previously known. In 1926, the average rent in Viennese social housing was about just 4% of a monthly wage.
4%. What? What? How does that, what? 4%? Jesus Christ. People are out here spending the majority, 50% on rent here in America. 4% of your monthly wage, that's practically free.
The first 15 years after Austrian independence
Wow.
saw its capital transform from a symbol of urban blight into a beacon of socialist governance. It became known as Red Vienna, after the official color of the socialists who had pioneered these changes. And even though Red Vienna fell in 1934 when the country was seized by fascists, who did what they could to roll back social housing, that commitment to good, cheap housing remained after the Second World War. Today, an astonishing 62% of all city residents live in social housing, with the average monthly rent falling somewhere between $400 and $600 a month, with subsidies for lower income tenants. That is a
Considering we're talking about Vienna, my God, they live there for $500 a month.
Fraction of what people in America pay.
That's less than what people live here in honky tonk Indiana for a 1-bedroom. You live in Vienna for less.
Unlike in the United States, where public housing is treated as a worst-case way to house the very poor, Vienna's social housing residents are extremely diverse. Everyone except the top fifth of the population is eligible to live in social housing.
Hold on. What did he just say?
Everyone except the top fifth of the population is
I thought he said top 50. I was like, how does 60% of people at the top 50 can't? Okay, but no, he said the top fifth. That's interesting. I'd have to think about that one. I don't know how I feel about that. I thought it was open to everybody. Obviously, it makes logical sense. Like, you want to keep the houses available for the ones who need it, not the richest of the rich. But it would kind of suck to be right on that edge of being in the top fifth of earners, and you're disincentivized. You're like, maybe I shouldn't make any more money. Maybe I shouldn't, work any harder because I don't want to make more money and get kicked out of my house. How does that work? I'm sure they have laws and stuff about that to transition in or out or whatever. Okay. Moving on. That's just interesting.
Eligible to live in social housing. This means there's broad appeal across many segments of society, which creates the foundation for its political popularity. That is how the majority of people in Vienna enjoy something that's considered almost utopian here in New York. Affordable housing that isn't just cheap, but desirable. Housing that isn't just 4 walls and a roof, but a real home, with a sense of stability, safety, and community built in. Now, of course, this is only one example of an alternative framework for housing, and Vienna has not fully removed housing from the domain of the market. Residents still pay part of their earnings in rent to cover operational costs, and a sizable chunk of the population lives in private
it makes sense.
Housing. But it's an actually existing alternative that
someone's got to pay. It's either coming out of your taxes or out of a separate fee, so someone's got to pay.
Shows us what a step toward a better world could look like. If we want to end the housing crisis, the solution has to be moving toward the full decommodification of housing. In other words, moving away from the status quo, in which most people access housing by purchasing it on the market, and toward a future where we guarantee high-quality housing to all as a human right. So how can we do it? We can start by making sure people who access housing on the private market have ironclad protections against abuse and exploitation. But to go further, toward the Vienna model, we'll have to go beyond the market. We can establish community land trusts to gradually buy up housing on the private market and convert it to community ownership. We can give tenants a right of first refusal to buy out their landlords when buildings go up for sale. And we can fully...
I like this guy. I like how happy he is. You know what I mean? He makes me feel like it's possible. How he's smiling. He's like, just do this, do this, do this. It's easy. Let's do it.
Tenants a right of first refusal to buy out their landlords when buildings go up for sale. And we can fully commit to a new era of social housing, ending subsidies for luxury housing development and using our wealth to build beautiful, high-quality social housing projects that offer good homes and strong communities to everyone. We won't decommodify housing overnight, but we know what we have to do, and we have history to guide us. And we know how we'll get there, through a movement of the multiracial working class organizing for the better world we know is possible.
Okay.
And we've already begun. I'm Zahran Mamdani, assemblyman for New York's 36th Assembly District in Astoria.
Oh, wow. I didn't know he was a politician here. Okay.
For the Grabel Institute.
He's actually trying to do this. Damn. That was cool. That was really interesting. It's definitely like, I don't think it's happening anytime soon. Maybe never. Definitely got me thinking. That's a very interesting idea, especially thinking about how we don't really need the profit incentive in housing. It's kind of like healthcare. The one thing, like universal healthcare is something I really believe in, but having that profit incentive does stoke innovation. Obviously it helps with that. So that's a tougher problem to fix. This housing stuff, we know how to build houses. You can hire contractors and stuff, have them be paid by the state, and they'd be just as good. And we don't need to innovate too much more. And I'm sure there'd be still a way to figure out how to innovate, housing and stuff. But it's all very interesting. Now, with housing and mortgages being, mortgage-backed securities and stuff being the backbone of so much in the financial system, I have no idea how you would actually go about. He made it seem easy. He did. I guess it would just be a slow transition. People moving out, okay, now that place is a public housing project, and so on. Buy it up, turn it into public housing, okay. But damn, it would take a while, I think, and wow, that would be fought tooth and nail by a lot of people here in America. Anyway, very fun, very interesting. I loved that video. That was I like that guy. He was very positive. I appreciate that. And thank you, Jamiro, for sending that in. And this had 21-minute long freaking reaction. Holy crap. Thank you to anybody watching this still. You guys are the best. Can I say that? Can I just take a moment and say 21 minutes into the video, if anybody's still here, I love you guys. You're amazing. Like, for instance, Jamiro sending this in. He says, I don't know if this is going on the German or European reaction channel. I find that so cool. That is so cool. That there's people out there who watch more than one of my channels. That is not, I never thought that would be the case. I never thought any of this would even, anybody would watch anything. I've been doing YouTube for 15 years, since 2006. And it's hard to get people watching anything. What am I talking about? I have no idea what I'm talking about at this point, but thank you is what I'm just trying to say, I think. And the fact that, this Jamiro is like, oh yeah, the German channel, the European channel, that's just so cool. Familiar with more than one of my channels. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Did I say that enough? I feel like I just went on a whole tangent about it. Anyway, 22 minutes and 30 seconds. I need to end this. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.